Having just received their pay rise, train operators are struggling to convince drivers to work overtime shifts on their days off. That means services are being cancelled at the last minute because operators don't have enough staff and drivers are rejecting the overtime. Simon Calder, the Independent's travel editor, is here. Simon, good morning.
Good morning.
It sounds, Simon,
yes,
there is a sort of huge reliance on rest day working days on the railways.
there is and there always has been. And if you go back to the olden days of British Railways in the up to the mid-1990s, that was because working on the railways wasn't actually very lucrative. It was a good way for staff, therefore, to earn a bit of extra cash. And it also meant that the costs were kept down for British Rail, which then and now the railways required a huge amount of public subsidy. Once privatisation happened, both the big rail unions, ASLEF, which looks after the drivers, and the RMT, which is pretty much everyone else, were incredibly successful at this kind of divide and rule, because with so many different train operators, they could go after them individually, and they secured some really good pay rises. We've then had, up to this summer, 2 years of strikes by train drivers, and ultimately that went on for so long because the outgoing Conservative government was demanding modernisation in return for a pay rise. Labour came in and said, right, you can have backdated pay rise worth 15%. And it's actually, without any strings attached, it's that pay rise, because it's been backdated, because that meant for a typical driver many thousands of pounds just going into their pay packets. They're now thinking, crikey, we're doing all right. Exactly as you say, no need to work over Christmas. As a result, there are fears that there are going to be mass cancellations already, because so many drivers and other rail staff don't have to work on Sundays. You see large-scale cancellations, particularly on Great Western Railway and on Northern, but only west of the Pennines, because that's where they don't have to work on Sundays.
If a railway promises services that it then doesn't deliver, are there any repercussions for them?
Well, not really. I mean, bear in mind that although the Labour government has talked about nationalisation too, we've really effectively got a nationalised railway, because the Department for Transport specifies all the services that should be run, and it pays many of the train operators a subsidy. At the moment, taxpayers are paying £400 a second to keep the railways running. If you're a train operator, then you've got these terms and conditions which have been around for years, and you simply say to them, I'm sorry, we can't get the drivers to work. If you, or other members of staff, if you rely on train managers, for instance, like Avanti West Coast, well, they're going out on strike on 3 days, on 22nd, 23rd and 29th of December. Partly that is because they are envious of how much train drivers are getting. If you're an ASLEF member, if you're a train driver working for Avanti West Coast, you work on your day off, you get a flat £600. They want something that matches that. And there is so much money that are swirling around that, first of all, a lot of people are thinking, well, I don't actually need to work, so I won't, thanks. I'll spend time with the family. And also, when they do go to work, it is costing an absolute fortune. And so you've got this strange situation where, of course, rail workers have never been paid so much. And at the same time, they're less likely to go to work because they financially don't need to. You know, you're doing a 4-day week as a train driver, you're getting £70,000 a year for that. If you do 1 day a week, leaving out Christmas and New Year, that will pretty much, if it's Avanti West Coast, take your pay to £100,000 a year. Why would you ever want to work on the remaining 2 days of the week?
Yeah, well, you can see. So what's the solution to the problem, Simon? Because, I said it seems sort of baked in, this over-reliance on overtime. Does it look like that's going to change?
Well, there's two solutions. First of all, train up lots of extra people, and they're trying to do what they can. But unfortunately, COVID absolutely got in the way. You train people by putting them in the same cab as an experienced driver. You couldn't actually do that. So once you've got enough drivers, and my goodness, at the rates that are being paid, there's no problem attracting them. It's the training which is the tricky problem. Then things should improve. But look, we've got record levels of flu around. Therefore, people are going to go sick.
No, they're going to
Therefore,
be
they're going
ill.
to be
Yes.
covered.
Oh.
And so therefore, it's looking pretty miserable, I'm sorry to say.
Was I the fool, Simon, for booking a train on Christmas Eve?
No, absolutely not. Christmas Eve, really, really good time to be travelling, Rosie. The big pressure is going to be Friday the 20th. Sunday the 22nd, especially because of the problems, because of Avanti West Coast, and Monday the 23rd, where you're going to see, particularly on north-south routes, Avanti West Coast on strike, and the main line that might otherwise be used from London to Leicester to Derby to Sheffield closed because of engineering work. So it's a pretty perfect storm of misery. But I think Christmas Eve, you'll be absolutely fine.
Simon, where are you travelling to for Christmas, or are you staying put?